Even after 35 years, Santiago Flight 5113 continues to capture attention and intrigue. The mysteries surrounding the flight remain unsolved, leaving it as an enduring enigma. Santiago Flight 513, operated by Santiago Airlines, was once a successful commercial flight. However, the incident associated with it marked the beginning of the company's downfall. On September 4, 1954, Flight 513 took off from AAN in Germany, bound for Porto Alegre, Brazil. The aircraft, carrying 88 passengers and 4 crew members, totaling 92 people, was cleared for departure after a routine check. Shortly after takeoff, however, the plane vanished from radar. Despite efforts to re-establish communication and a swift initiation of a search and rescue operation, the control tower had no leads on where to begin the search. The plane's sudden disappearance left authorities with no clue as to its location. The plane vanished over the vast Atlantic Ocean, the second largest ocean on Earth, covering roughly 17% of the planet's surface and about 24% of its water area. Searching for it was like finding a needle in a haystack. Despite extensive efforts, the search proved futile, consuming valuable time and resources. Families of the passengers and crew, along with those in the aviation industry, were left grief-stricken and bewildered. As months turned into years, the search was eventually abandoned and the loss was accepted. Santiago Airlines, unable to recover from the disaster, saw a decline in passengers due to fears for their safety, leading to its eventual closure. By 1956, 2 years after the disappearance, the incident had become just another mystery, akin to the disappearance of Amelia Earhart or the British South American Airways Lancastrian plane that vanished on August 2, 1947. On October 12, 1989, at Brazil's Porto Alegre airport, officials saw an unauthorized plane flying around the base. If you fly as much as possible, you will know that you can't enter an airport just like that. You have to let the officials in the control tower know minutes before landing so that they can do the needful, like clearing the runway to make the flight land successfully. This plane did none of that. The air traffic controllers tried contacting the pilot but got no response. This was literally a flight risk. The plane circled the airport, then got close to the runway and made a perfect landing. The airport authorities ran towards the plane, probably even to punch the pilot in the mouth for flying in without warning. When the plane finally landed, it was noted that the engine was still running and the aircraft itself was in surprisingly good condition. However, the name Belay emblazoned on the side, along with the Santiago Airlines logo, caused immediate confusion. Santiago Airlines had gone out of business 35 years earlier following the notorious disappearance of Flight 5113. Authorities were baffled. Upon entering the aircraft, they were met with an eerie and macabre scene. The passengers and crew were all deceased, their bodies having long since decomposed to mere skeletons. Remarkably, the skeletons were still seated in their seats, strapped in with seat belts. The sight was horrifying and left everyone present in shock. They went to the cabin and saw the pilot also dead like the rest of them, but they noticed that the pilot was holding the controls tightly, signifying that maybe he landed the plane. But if he did land the plane perfectly, how is he dead to the point that only his bones are remaining? Mind you, they still don't know which plane this is. After a little investigation, it began to dawn on them that this plane was the infamous Flight 513 that disappeared 35 years ago. Identifying the pilot, Captain Miguel Victor Curry, with his name tag on his shirt, helped the authorities arrive at this conclusion. Of course, this goes without saying that the news of this event went viral. Everyone wanted to know what happened. How does a plane disappear and appear 35 years later, land itself, and then everyone on board is dead and decomposed? Now, it was a question that plagued everyone. It was so viral that a newspaper in America covered the story. For a story to travel that far without the internet says a lot about how crazy the event was. The Brazilian government looked into this strange event, but was also stunned. As usual with every government in the world, they started to control the narrative, turning the story from a weird event to saying that the plane had just popped out of nowhere and landed safely. This lackluster explanation led many to believe that the government had something to do with the disappearance or was hiding something. Some people even think that a shadowy organization took the plane off the radar on purpose and used its passengers in a covert and probably illegal operation. They could be so powerful that they have the government in their pockets. People started getting angry at the government's excuse of a story. People's families were on that plane and they died. They deserved a better explanation than what the government provided. An ex-physics teacher in Porto Alegre named Rodrigo de Manha said the people have a right to know everything about this plane, and the government has a duty to tell them. Others, including paranormal researcher Dr. Cello Otello, agreed with Manha, asking the government for full disclosure. Other mystifying theories started coming out. One such theory was that wormholes exist, and this was major proof of that, and is probably why the government is trying to hide it from the public. Dr. Cello Otello, one of the critics of the government, was a heavy believer in the wormhole theory. He used Albert Einstein's work as inspiration. Einstein worked on equations for his general theory of relativity in 1960. These equations showed that there are gaps in space that have an insanely strong gravitational pull and can gulp down anything that passes by them. We call these holes black holes. When Einstein proposed this theory, it was just that, a theory. We didn't have the technology to fact-check these theories, but guess what? NASA took a picture of a black hole in 2019, which proved that Einstein's theory was right all along, including the wormhole theory. This also meant that this story, no matter how weird it sounds, could be true. Wormholes act as tunnels connecting places in space-time in such a way that moving from point A to point B will take much less time than a trip through normal space. If you play video games, you know how you quickly travel or disappear to a location instead of actually driving to that location. That is a perfect example of what wormholes are. In some games, time passes so you can quickly travel in the afternoon, and when you arrive at your destination it could be night. That's wormhole traveling. Because famous scientists like Stephen Hawking think wormholes might exist, people who are interested in unsolved aviation mysteries often think about how the theory could be used to explain the many missing planes over the years, including those that went missing in the famous disappearing zone known as the Bermuda Triangle. Basically, the wormhole idea may be a better explanation for Santiago Flight 513's disappearance and reappearance. Most cases of disappearances are never solved, just like the two examples I gave earlier with the late Amelia Earhart and the British South American Airways Lancastrian plane. So now we don't know what to believe. Is it a wormhole? Could this be a sign of the divine? What is it? Well, the answer is simple. It is an Oscar-winning story. Okay, maybe not an Oscar-winning story, but it is still a story nonetheless. It never happened. If you search for Santiago Flight 513, you won't find any results from credible sources. My own research revealed that there are no official records of Santiago Airlines, nor any evidence of the plane's existence. Additionally, the city of AN, where the flight supposedly originated, does not have an international airport. The nearest airport is a regional one in Limburg, Netherlands. So the question remains, how and where did the plane supposedly take off? The story first appeared on November 14, 1989, in the weekly World News, a tabloid known for publishing sensational and often fictitious stories. The newspaper is infamous for its outlandish headlines, and the story of Flight 513 is no exception. The lack of verifiable information and the dubious source raise significant doubts about the authenticity of the entire account. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now.